in confidence. I shall speak in a straightforward way, and shall say today what perhaps I should say tomorrow, or 10 years from now. But I shall say it today, because I cannot keep it back, because I have nothing better to say than the truth, or what I hold to be the truth. But why seek truths that are not pleasant? We cannot help it. No man can suppress the truth. Truth finds a crack or a crevice to crop out of. It bobs up to the surface, and all the volume and weight of waters cannot keep it down. Truth prevails. Life, death, truth. Behold, these three no power can keep back. And since we are doomed to know the truth, let us cultivate a love for it. It is of no avail to cry over lost illusions, to long for vanished dreams, or to call to the departing gods to come back. It may be pleasant to play with toys and dolls all our life, but evidently we are not meant to remain children always. The time comes when we must put away childish things and obey the summons of truth, stern and high. A people who fear the truth can never be a free people. If what I say is the truth, do you know of any good reason why I should not say it? And if for prudential reasons I should sometimes hold back the truth, how would you know when I am telling what I believe to be the truth, and when I am holding it back for reasons of policy? The truth, however unwelcome, is not injurious. It is error which raises false hopes, which destroys, degrades and pollutes, and which, sooner or later, must be abandoned. Was it not Spencer, whom Darwin called our great philosopher, who said, repulsive as is its aspect, the hard fact which dissipates a cherished illusion is presently found to contain the germ of a more salutary belief? Spain is decaying today because of her teachers, for policy's sake, are withholding the disagreeable truth from the people. Holy water and stained bones can give a nation illusions and dreams, but never strength. A difficult subject is in the nature of a challenge to the mind. One difficult task attempted is worth 1,000 commonplace efforts completed. The majority of people avoid the difficult and fear danger, but he who would progress must even court danger. Political and religious liberty were discovered through peril and struggle. The world owes its emancipation to human daring. Had Columbus feared danger, America might have slept for another 1,000 years. I have a difficult subject in hand. It is also a delicate one. But I am determined not only to know, if it is possible, the whole truth about Jesus, but also to communicate that truth to others. Some people can find their minds shut. I cannot. I must share my intellectual life with the world. If I lived 1,000 years ago, I might have collapsed at the sight of the burning stake, but I feel sure I would have deserved the stake. People say to me sometimes, why do you not confine yourself to moral and religious exoneration, such as, be kind, do good, love one another, etc.? But there is more of a moral tonic in the open and candid discussion of a subject like the one in hand than in a multitude of platitudes. We feel our moral fibers stiffen into force and purpose under the inspiration of a peril dared for the advancement of truth. Tell us what you believe, is one of those requests frequently addressed to me. I never deliver a lecture in which I do not, either directly or indirectly, give full and free expression to my faith in everything that is worthy of faith. If I do not believe in dogma, it is because I believe in freedom. If I do not believe in one inspired book, it is because I believe that all truth and only truth is inspired. If I do not ask the gods to help us, it is because I believe in human help, so much more real than supernatural help. If I do not believe in standing still, it is because I believe in progress. If I am not attracted by the vision of a distant heaven, it is because I believe in human happiness, now and here. If I do not say, Lord, Lord, to Jesus, it is because I bow my head to a greater power than Jesus, to a more efficient Savior than he has ever been, science. Oh, he tears down, but he does not build up, is another criticism about my work. It is not true. No preacher or priest is more constructive. To build up their churches and maintain their creeds, the priests pulled down and destroyed the magnificent civilization of Greece and Rome, plunging Europe into a dark and sterile age which lasted over 1,000 years. When Galileo waved his hand for joy because he believed that he had enriched humanity with a new truth and extended the sphere of knowledge, what did the church do to him? It conspired to destroy him. It shut him up in a dungeon, clasping truth in a jail, gagging the mouth of the student. Is that building up or tearing down? When Bruno lighted a new torch to increase the light of the world, what was his reward? The stake. During all the ages that the church had the power to police the world, every time a thinker raised his head, he was clubbed to death. Do you think it is kind of us? Does it square with our sense of justice to call the priests constructive, and the scientists and the philosophers who have helped people to their feet, helped them to self-government in politics, and to self-help in life, destructive? Count your rights, political, religious, social, intellectual, and tell me which of them was conquered for you by the priest. He is irreverent is still another hasty criticism I have heard against the rationalist. I wish to tell you something, but first let us be impersonal. The epithets irreverent, blasphemer, atheist, and infidel are flung at a man, not from pity, but from envy, not having the courage or the industry of our neighbor, who works like a busy bee in the world of men and books, searching with the sweat of his brow for the real bread of life, wetting the open page before him with his tears, pushing into the wee hours of the night his quest, animated by the fairest of all loves, the love of truth. We ease our own indolent conscience by calling him names. We pretend that it is not because we are too lazy or too selfish to work as hard or think as freely as he does, but because we do not want to be as irreverent as he is that we keep the windows of our minds shut. To excuse our own mediocrity, we call the man who tries to get out of the rut a blasphemer. And so we ask the world to praise our indifference as a great virtue, and to denounce the conscientious toil and thought of another as blasphemy. This is the end of Incompetence. Is Jesus a myth? What is a myth? A myth is a fanciful explanation of a given phenomenon. Observing the sun, the moon, and the stars overhead, the primitive man wished to account for them. This was natural. The mind craves for knowledge. The child asks questions because of an inborn desire to know. Man feels ill at ease with a sense of a mental vacuum until his questions are answered. Before the days of science, a fanciful answer was all that could be given to man's questions about the physical world. The primitive man guessed where knowledge failed him. What else could he do? A myth, then, is a guess, a story, a speculation, or a fanciful explanation of a phenomenon in the absence of accurate information. Many are the myths about the heavenly bodies, which, while we call them myths because we know better, were to the ancients truths. The sun and moon were once brother and sister, thought the child man. But there arose a dispute between them. The woman ran away, and the man ran after her, until they came to the end of the earth, where land and sky met. The woman jumped into the sky, and the man after her, where they kept chasing each other forever, as sun and moon. Now and then they came close enough to snap at each other. That was their explanation of an eclipse. Note, Childhood of the World, Edward Claude. End note. With this mythos, the primitive man was satisfied, until his developing intelligence realized its inadequacy. Science was born of that realization. During the Middle Ages, it was believed by Europeans that in certain parts of the world, in India, for instance, there were people who had only one eye in the middle of their foreheads, and were more like monsters than humans. This was an imaginary knowledge, which travel and research have corrected. The myth of a one-eyed people living in India has been replaced by accurate information concerning the Hindus. Likewise, before the science of ancient languages was perfected, before archaeology had dug up buried cities and deciphered the hieroglyphics on the monuments of antiquity, most of our knowledge concerning the earlier ages was mystical. That is to say, it was knowledge not based on investigation, but made to order. Just as the theologians still speculate about the other world, primitive man speculates about this world. Even we moderns, not very long ago, believed, for instance, the land of Egypt was visited by 10 fantastic plagues, that in one bloody night every firstborn in the land was slain, that the angel of a tribal god dipped his hand in blood and printed a red mark upon the doors of the houses of the Jews to protect them from harm, that Pharaoh and his armies were drowned in the Red Sea, that the children of Israel wandered for 40 years around Mount Sinai, and so forth, and so forth. But now that we can read the inscriptions on the stone pages dug out of ancient ruins, now that we can compel a buried world to reveal its secrets and to tell us its story, we do not have to go on making myths about the ancients. Myths die when history is born. It will be seen from these examples that there is no harm in myth-making if the myth is called a myth. It is when we use our fanciful knowledge to deny or to shut out real and scientific knowledge that the myth becomes a stumbling block. And this is precisely the use to which myths have been put. The king with his sword and the priest with his curses have supported the myth against science. When a man pretends to believe that the Santa Claus of his childhood is real, and tries to compel others also to play a part, he becomes positively immoral. There is no harm in believing in Santa Claus as a myth, but there is in pretending that he is real, because such an attitude of the mind makes a mere trifle of the truth. Is Jesus a myth? There is in man a faculty for fiction. Before history was born, there was myth. Before men could think, they dreamed. It was with the human race in its infancy as it is with the child. The child's imagination is more active than its reason. It is easier for it to fancy even than to see. It thinks less than it guesses. This wild flight of fancy is checked only by experience. It is reflection which introduces a bit into the mouth of imagination, curbing its pace and subduing its relentless spirit. It is, then, as we grow older, and, if I may use the word, riper, that we learn to distinguish between fact and fiction, between history and myth. In childhood we need playthings, and the more fantastic and bizarre they are, the better we are pleased with them. We dream, for instance, of castles in the air, gorgeous and clothed with the azure hue of the skies. We fill the space about and over us with spirits, fairies, gods, and other invisible and airy beings. We covet the rainbow. We reach out for the moon. Our feet do not really begin to touch the firm ground until we have reached the years of discretion. I know there are those who wish they could always remain children, living in dreamland. But even if this were desirable, it is not possible. Evolution is our destiny. Of what use is it, then, to take up arms against destiny? Let it be borne in mind that all religions of the world were born in the childhood of the race. Science was not born until man had matured. There is in this thought a world of meaning. Children make religions. Grown-up people create science. The cradle is the womb of all the fairies and faiths of mankind. The school is the birthplace of science. Religion is the science of the child. Science is the religion of the matured man. In the discussion of this subject, I appeal to the mature, not to the child mind. I appeal to those who have cultivated a taste for truth, who are not easily scared, but who can screw their courage to the sticking point, and follow to the end truth's leading. The multitude is ever joined to its idols. Let them alone. I speak to the discerning few. There is an important difference between a lecturer and an ordained preacher. The latter can command a hearing in the name of God, or in the name of the Bible. He does not have to satisfy his hearers about the reasonableness of what he preaches. He is God's mouthpiece, and no one may disagree with him. He can also invoke the authority of the Church and of the Christian world to enforce acceptance of his teaching. The only way I may command your respect is to be reasonable. You will not listen to me for God's sake, nor for the Bible's sake, nor yet for the love of heaven or the fear of hell. My only protection is to be rational, to be truthful. In other words, the preacher can afford to ignore common sense in the name of revelation, but if I depart from it in the least, or am caught once playing fast and loose with the facts, I will irretrievably lose my standing. Our answer to the question, is Jesus a myth, must depend more or less upon original research. As there is very little written on the subject, the majority of writers assume that a person answering to the description of Jesus lived some 2,000 years ago. Even the few who entertain doubts on the subject seem to hold that while there is a large mythical element in the Jesus story, nevertheless there is a historical nucleus round which has clustered the elaborate legend of the Christ. In all probability, they argue, there was a man called Jesus, who said many helpful things, and led an exemplary life, and all the miracles and wonders represent their accretions of fond and pious ages. Let us place ourselves entirely in the hands of the evidence. As far as possible, let us be passive, showing no predisposition one way or the other. We can afford to be independent, If the evidence proves the historicity of Jesus, well and good. If the evidence is not sufficient to prove it, there is no reason why we should fear to say so. Besides, it is our duty to inform ourselves on this question. As intelligent beings, we desire to know whether this Jesus, whose worship is not only costing the world millions of the people's money, but which is also drawing to his service the time, the energies, the affections, the devotions, and the labor of humanity, is a myth, or a reality. We believe that all religious persecutions, all sectarian wars, hatreds, and intolerance, which still cramp and embitter our humanity, would be replaced by love and brotherhood, if the sects could be made to see that the God Jesus they are quarreling over is a myth, a shadow which credulity alone gives substance. Like people who have been fighting in the dark, fearing some danger, the sects, once relieved of the thraldom of a tradition which has been handed down to them by a childish age and country, will turn around and embrace one another. In every sense, the subject is an all-absorbing one. It goes to the root of things, it touches the vital parts, and it means life or death to the Christian religion. This is the end of Is Jesus a Myth?